As the number of users on the streaming services increase, the varieties of programs and presentations competing to get attention are expanding too. From crosstalk comedians to new technology trends, podcasts are attempting to cover it all. The host of one particular podcast is drawing in fans by talking with creative personalities in China. For Milo Chow, it's a way to better understand the roots of creativity.
Good morning, everybody. This is Milo Chow. For the most part, I think Westerners see Chinese people as pretty one-dimensional. I think they see them as driven, ambitious, focused on money, maybe family-oriented, but I don't think they see dimension. They don't see backstory. They don't see drive. They don't see struggle. And I want to bring those out. There's a lot of incredible people in China who have some really interesting thoughts and really interesting ways of seeing the world. And that's why I'm not really focusing on the art. I'm not asking them how they dance. I'm not asking them how they paint. I'm asking about their lives. I'm asking them about how they got here. My goal is to actually look behind the art and really delve into the individual. My goal is to understand the nature and the nurture of creativity. When I do the interviews, I want to go back to their childhood. I think creativity and being creative is not something that is allowed to flow naturally. But I think the people who are creative and end up being creative and making creativity or the act of creation part of who they are as an adult, make that happen. They'll find a way. Today, I'm sitting down with Niels Andersen. The first thing you notice about Niels is how tall he is. His dad was a Viking from Sweden. I found was quite interesting, a very interesting, a beautiful story, was that of Chen Danyan, who's a very famous writer here in China. Now, she grew up, her parents were away, but oftentimes she was left alone, without any toys, without any books. She would see, little insects here and there, and she would just conjure up in her mind. And it was the absence of toys, the absence of literature, the absence of things that encouraged and nurtured her imagination. She had nothing. And she was given the gift of imagination. And I thought that was beautiful. And she continues to write, and she continues to, travel and be creative. And it all started from nothing.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Impossible Is Enough work?
In 1984, we got to work on the Nike account, and when they came to LA and were in the Olympics.
There's different types of creativity, even from an academic perspective. There's little C and big C. Picasso does the kind of creativity that is the big C, right? He is creating stuff that has never been seen or done before. It's really giving birth to something that's never existed. Little C could be where you're actually, I could be knitting something, right? It's not going to change the world, but not all creativity needs to reach to that level of being original and being, mind-changing, mind-shifting. We also need to recognize that there is a daily type of creativity that also nourishes and enriches individuals and people in their lives in a smaller way. Why am I doing this podcast? Why am I shining a light on creativity in China? And I started working in China in '97. I was working at an advertising agency in Beijing. Most of the people who were really leading creative department in advertising agencies were either from Hong Kong or Taiwan. Or occasionally there were some Americans or some Brits, but it was never a mainland Chinese person. I mean, we just kind of accepted it, but I didn't really appreciate it. I thought that at that time, I look forward to the day when a local Chinese person runs a creative department. Or a question just occurred to me, which was, what can China teach the world about creativity? And I thought it was an interesting question, because at that time everyone was thinking, well, China doesn't have anything to teach the world about creativity.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and share if you feel compelled to do so.
This is for the Chinese audience. Why China? I'm in China. I love China. I think China's an incredible place. I think it's an incredible history. And it's not just about history. It's not just about food. It's about people. It's about really profound stories. Originally, I did it in Chinese because I wanted to focus in on a Chinese audience. But I think really the reason why I did that is because I wanted to interview creative people who are Chinese. And most of the ones that I spoke with did not speak English. Now I'm doing the show, the podcast on my own, and I do them in English primarily because my Chinese is okay, but my goal is still to reach a Chinese audience. I still post my podcast on Chinese channels, platforms. What that means, of course, is that the people who listen to the podcast are going to be Chinese people who listen to English, right? So it's going to be urban usually, educated usually, or just people who like to listen to English. That's a limitation, obviously. So therefore, what I would like to do is I'd like to move into video, right? If I move into video, then I can have subtitles. And so that overcomes the issue of interviewing people. Would I have started a podcast in the US? I don't know. I don't know if I would have started. I think the reason why I started here, perhaps, maybe one of the reasons, is because there's such an energy to create in China. Everyone's thinking about creativity, everyone's thinking about innovation, everyone's thinking about doing stuff. Everyone I know in Shanghai is doing stuff, right? We're creating stuff, we're putting stuff out there, we're, whether it's a startup or what have you, I mean, we're all kind of doing stuff. I want the person who's listening to the podcast to be inspired and to think that they can be creative. I want people to think that even great people who have achieved miraculous things, started somewhere really small, from nothing. I just want that, that young office worker, maybe it's a woman, maybe it's a guy, listen to it and say, I've been there, or wow, that's pretty amazing, or it's not too late. Let me get started. Let me do something. Let me be creative.
Thank you very much for your time today, Niels. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
All right, thank you.